Hi, today I'm going to be interviewing Ashleigh via audio, who's one of my wonderful clients, to give you a bit more insight into her specific reasons for coming for coaching and any insights that she may have that might strike a chord with anybody else who might be looking to come and reach out for some coaching. So, hey Ash, thanks for doing this today. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about why you first reached out for coaching?
Yeah, sure. So I own a charter boat company on Sydney Harbour. I initially reached out for coaching because I was a bit stuck with motivation, I suppose, and time management, and I kind of felt a bit overwhelmed with running a small business and I suppose all the different hats that you have to wear. So I sought just assistance, I suppose, in kind of figuring that out, which in turn ended up being a completely different focus that we took to start with, which was interesting.
Yeah, and on that point, what did you find, I guess, we had an initial conversation, which I do with everybody. What was your experience of that first conversation that made you think, yeah, this is the sort of the coaching that I need?
Yeah, I remember I came in and met you. I think I sort of had verbal diarrhea for about 30 minutes, just sort of outlaying, started sort of talking about the business and the things that I needed help with. And then it kind of moved on to, my relationship. So I should mention my partner and I, we own the business together. So that comes with its own challenges. And I just found that you were so understanding, which I think is something that all of us really seek, is just for somebody to understand where we're coming from. And I think that was the sort of first point where I was like, okay, she's doesn't judge me. She gets it. And she seems to have some quite practical advice, out of the first session. So that was that sort of convinced me to start working with you.
Yeah, and what have you found since we started working together? I find that sometimes people have this preconceived idea of what it is they want to focus on, what it is that, and a lot of it comes from a critical mind of I'm not doing enough. And I do remember from our first sort of discussion that you were quite self-critical about how, you weren't achieving enough in your roles and stuff like that. And then sometimes people get a little bit... they wonder why I'm challenging them in different areas, why it might go off a bit of path, because they want to actually keep criticizing themselves and they want to focus on this point. You actually weren't like that. But what have you found the coaching experience to be since we started?
Yeah, I think one of the things was, sometimes you can get so overwhelmed in a situation where, and well, I can't say everybody, but myself, I have a tendency to, well, I've learned through working with you that I have a tendency to sort of catastrophize situations, and, X, Y, Z might happen. And in my mind, it's the end of the world. So I think what you've sort of helped me a lot with is, whether it's in my personal life or in the business, is although there might not be a light at the end of the tunnel that I can actually see, it's fine. It's breaking the steps down to get towards that. So you actually feel like you're getting somewhere, as opposed to having this like overbearing situation that you can't see any sort of resolve. Yeah. You kind of help break that down and sort of have traffic lights almost on the way to that light at the end of the tunnel. So I felt like I was achieving, although they were small achievements along the way. So it really just helped to break things down into manageable pieces, I suppose.
Yeah, and then emotionally you don't get so overwhelmed, and therefore you can manage to actually achieve these things.
Exactly. And there's no better feeling than a sense of achievement, no matter how big or small that is. So I think that's, rather than this critical mind that I had, which was always sort of beating myself up and telling myself that I wasn't doing things as well as I could have been, I felt like I was actually getting somewhere and achieving things.
Absolutely. And I just want to touch on the point, because I do work with a lot of business partnerships who are also in relationships as well as like non-personal relationship business partnerships. But I find that with a lot of business partnerships that are in relationships, that there are some boundary things that come up and need, they need sort of focusing on as well. And do you feel like that's sort of something that's been quite poignant with us as well?
Oh, 100%. And it is so helpful. It's quite great to have one person that I can go to and that understands all these different aspects. And like I said, and like you've said as well, having your partner, you know, working with your partner, living with your partner, has its challenges. And you've definitely helped me work through a lot of those, just with setting boundaries around who does what, and I suppose appreciating each other's work, and just appreciating each other in general has been very, it's really been helpful for us.
That's really good. Thank you for that. And just if you were going to say anything to people who are looking or thinking about having coaching, I guess, what have you got any advice for them?
Do it. Look, I never really spoke to anybody for like when I was younger. I never really had, you know, therapy or coaching or anything like that. And I had a bit of a preconceived idea that coaching was a much more spiritual sort of thing. And I think that purely came from the fact that I had a friend that was a coach that was into a lot of that sort of stuff. And so I had this idea in my mind that it was a lot about that, and a lot about like journaling and gratitude and all of that sort of stuff. And although I love that stuff, your coaching has been a lot more practical. It's been bite-sized practical things, and I've found that it's you know, out of anybody that I've ever spoken to, I think it's been the most beneficial relationship that I've had.
Oh, lovely to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's completely true. Like, it's just, you've helped me through a lot of things, a lot of personal things, a lot of business decisions. So yeah, I just think if anybody's on the fence deciding whether to do it, I think just have a chat with you, and they'll know as soon as they do that it's going to be helpful for them.
That's right. And just on that point, that, you know, even when you talk about the practical side of things, like we've worked on practical mindset stuff as well as practical actual sort of physical business stuff, haven't we? So it's, rather than sort of saying go off and journal and things like that, which for some people that might work, but, you know, being able to tune into somebody and realize that actually you need to put something mindset wise practically in place on a day-to-day basis to see the difference between responding and reacting and things like that. I think that's, you know, that's quite a good point to make.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is a key point to your style of coaching as well, is that, you know, you do understand the person that you're working with. And although, as you say, journaling and things may be beneficial for some people, for me, it was more about, how about you just stop doing all of that and catastrophizing the world, and actually just like take a breather for a minute and understand what it is that you're, you know, worried about, upset about, stressed about, whatever, like, and figure out the answer that way, right? So yeah, it's just, I think it's just been very tailored. And again, it comes back to that whole point of that you sort of you understand your clients' needs and tailor your coaching to suit them.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate having this chat today, and I love working with you, you know that. And I just really appreciate you doing this. So thank you so much, Ash. I'll speak to you soon.
You're welcome. See you later.
Bye.